Hey, what's up? It's John Ricard. So if I asked you what is the greatest invention in the history of the world, what would you say? Right? Some people might say fire, some people might say the wheel. I would say you're wrong. I think the most amazing invention in the history of the world is this EyeFi card right here. I really, really love this thing. Now what it allows you to do is it allows you to take photos from your real camera and very quickly transfer them to your phone, which I think is a lot of fun because now my entire Instagram feed and any picture I put on Twitter comes off my Leica, which is my M9, which is my favorite camera to use for like everyday shooting, and I also use it professionally. And you're transferring the full-size file. It's the full 7 to 10 megabyte file that gets transferred right to your phone. And I've used it professionally a couple of times. I shoot at BET a lot, Black Entertainment Television, and I'll send them pictures from the show right from the Leica during the actual show that I photograph, which is called 106 Park. So I use it professionally, but I also use it for a lot of fun for just my Instagram and Twitter shots, okay? And I think it's amazing, and I'm going to show you exactly how it works because I didn't even preset this up. So what I'm going to do is take a shot right now with the Leica. I'm not going to bother to get exposure right. I'm just going to go to automatic. I'm going to take a photo. I have an EyeFi card inside this camera. So I'm going to go to my phone. Let's make sure we're really close on the screen here. I'm going to go to my settings. And I'm going to look for the EyeFi card in this list of networks. Are we focused okay? Okay, so I'm going to touch my EyeFi card. I usually count to about 4 or 5. I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you'll notice the indicator on top of the iPhone does not switch to Wi-Fi. It still says as if we're in 4G. But I've touched my EyeFi card. I count to 4 or 5 seconds. Then I'm going to go to the EyeFi app. Once I go to the app, if all goes well, it's going to instantly start transferring now because I connected to the card. And there it goes. And you're seeing pictures from the shoot that I did a little earlier today. This is someone named Kayla Brianna, and we just shot this a little while ago. What you're looking at now is transferring the full-size JPEGs from the Leica M9. So this is giving you an idea of the speed at which it transfers. Now, a lot of times, as it's transferring, what I'll do is I keep touching the shutter button like this periodically to turn the camera back on. The camera has no idea this is taking place, and the card is running off the battery power from the camera. So sometimes I'll push the menu button, sometimes I'll push info, other times I'll just touch the shutter button like this, sort of to keep that network connection active. So you can see the amount of time since we've been talking, I've transferred now 6 photos, and it's working really, really well. Now, a lot of times as you leave it alone, the card goes to sleep and you lose the connection. And sometimes even when you're shooting and you have not left it alone, it loses the connection. So what you have to do is you go back into settings and you rejoin the network for the EyeFi card. So you'll touch it again. And again, you have to do this periodically. And I see a lot of complaints about the card when I look online. Like, not everyone is running around saying this is the greatest invention in the history of the world. But I think sometimes it's a case of like Louis C.K. does this bit. He's a comedian. He does this bit about how like we've got the most amazing technology in the world with all these iPhones and things, and we walk around like, oh, I hate my iPhone. You know, I just want to break this thing, where we're not appreciative of it. So yeah, a lot of times I have to rejoin this network 5 or 6 times as I'm transferring. And yes, I have to keep monitoring and making sure my camera stays awake. But to me, that's a small price to pay to have my actual real photographs on my iPhone. So I no longer have to shoot with the iPhone if I want to put something on Instagram. I can use the Leica, and to me, that's a lot of fun. Now, just yesterday, I went out and bought a card to use in the studio. That's why I have 2 of these, because I wanted to get rid of the tether cord on my Nikon D3X because the tether cord is a complete disaster. So when I try to tether with the Nikon, I mean, it's a disaster. I've seen people complain about the HDMI cable. You know, for guys who are doing a lot of video on the DSLRs, they complain how the HDMI cable just falls right out of the camera because it was never designed as like a field connection. It's designed for your house or whatever. This is the same as when you're trying to tether. I mean, you're using this USB cable and you put it in, and it's just horrible. I mean, you just move it around, and like before you know it, it falls out. It's really a pain. And you see, we put this little contraption here trying to, I don't know, give it a little bit more weight and make it so that it kind of sticks in this doorway better, but it doesn't work. It falls off all the time. And another problem when you're tethering, at least the way I tether, I'm tethering into Lightroom 3, and the photos are not being written to the card. They go from the camera right into Lightroom 3, and if Lightroom crashes during this process, I lose whatever pictures are transferring. And I've had times where I've shot like 10 or 15 shots that did not transfer to Lightroom, and I lost them completely because they're not being written to the card. So I was really excited to get this EyeFi card that I was going to use in my Nikon, and I brought this little adapter to put it into a compact flash card. I don't know where that adapter is now, but I had a really, really hard time making it work on the computer. The problem for me is that my computer, just like my phone, keeps leaving the EyeFi network and rejoining the Wi-Fi that it's accustomed to joining. So I don't know how to solve that problem, so I have not really been successful in making it work. Although here you do see some pictures that did eventually transfer into the computer, but it's not something that is really working for me now. But I kind of feel it's more the computer's problem than the card, because the problem appears to be that the computer keeps rejoining different networks and does not stay logged on to the card network. So that's been a disaster. The last thing I want to tell you about this card is that the first time I set it up for the one I'm using on the Leica with the phone, which again I think is the better method, in my opinion, using the phone app works better than using it on the home computer. But it took me about half an hour to set it up. It was a nightmare. It was so confusing. I didn't understand what I was even doing. Just trying a whole lot of different things, even though I was reading the instructions. It was really hard for me to get it set up. Then I set one up for a friend of mine, a photographer named Ronnie Wright. I set one up for him. Still took me half an hour, even though I'd done it just 2 or 3 weeks before. The third time I did one, it was much quicker. The really tricky part is figuring out where the password for the card is. It shows up in the EyeFi Center on your computer when you first initialize the card, and it shows up in the app. So if you can figure out where the card password is, that will help you when it asks for the password. So if you can find that, maybe it'll speed it up. Okay, so no, it is not a perfect product. It's not. But to me, having my real photos show up on my phone and the ability to put those on Instagram or Twitter or to email them to my professional clients is huge. So I highly recommend the card. And last thing, my disclaimer, I have no relationship with EyeFi. I'm doing this video because I really do love this product, even though it's flawed. I think in a couple of years, it's going to be like amazing. Okay, thanks for watching.